Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Phil's Recap and Review. This is The Sopranos, Season 3, Episode 3, Fortunate Son. And we're here tonight to watch and talk about this episode of The Sopranos. If you haven't done one of these with us, basically what we do is we watch the episode live and we talk over it, pick it apart, talk about all the random details about this episode. And this episode really symbolizes and starts Season 3. The first two episodes of this season were about kind of fixing the business because of the unfortunate death in the cast. And it seems like this episode really kind of started the process of pushing Season 3 along. And we'll get into this with our guest host as well tonight. But this episode is very indicative of how I feel about Season 3. And I think there's some really good high parts, and then there's some Jackie Jr. And we'll get a little bit into this a bit. But I'm not alone, of course, to talk about this episode of The Sopranos, catching up here, doing 2 weeks in a row to get our 2 a month in here. We got Big Daddy Matt. How's it going, Matt?
Good. So Phil and I have been actually talking for the last 20 minutes. We have not mentioned this episode to each other
Nope.
yet, though. So This is I read some just random doofus's list of, he ranked the Soprano seasons in order yesterday. It's probably someone like me, like literally nobody that anyone cares about. And he put Season 3 as the best season overall. And I've always held Season 3 in high regard, and now watching it, and you've always sort of, not that you're anti-Season 3, but it's not your favorite. And no. I'm Episode 1, I was just, a brutal waste. Episode 2 is good, but I was very much disappointed with this one when I watched it.
Yeah, and I think there's some stuff in this episode I really like, and I don't want to be too down in. And obviously, as well as we're live tonight, we have the live motherfucking chat. Right now, we got Tom himself and Peter Griffin. We'll have some other people popping in and out throughout the evening. And thank you so much. And if you guys want to get any of your comments or questions in, whether it be during one of these live podcasts or after the fact, if you're watching it later, you can leave a voicemail at 781-990-8509. Also a text to that number as well if you have something to say that I miss in the chat, and we'll bring it to the next particular show. But Matt, my biggest problem with this episode, I think, comes down to, is it casting? Because I think this episode is so dependent on the acting, and because this episode's about 3 people, essentially. It's always about Tony. But the Fortunate Son thing, I think, is basically about Christopher, AJ, and Jackie Jr. And 2 of the 3 of them can't act too well.
And the third one is one of the best actors
and he's amazing. And everything Christopher in this episode, I liked. And It's not coincidental that everything Christopher, everything Tony, I liked. And for the most part, seeing things from AJ's perspective at times, like at the end where he's at Meadows' school and sort of awkward about all the kids at Columbia, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to feel there. I'm not, because I don't, no offense, I just don't think he puts it out there as much. And I think the show is putting a lot of weight onto him in this episode, and I don't think it quite works. Same with Jackie Jr., the scene with him and Tony, and we'll watch this live, obviously. I think Tony does it so well, but then there's something douchebaggy about Jackie Jr., but maybe there's supposed to be about Jackie Jr.
Yeah.
But
the big thing is, too, that he just, at this point, he thinks that Tony just killed his uncle, and his uncle was going to be his new father and bring him into this life, I guess, and whatever. The one upside to the AJ situation is that this is the best version of AJ we ever get.
Yes.
This is the least, as much as it's about AJ, and that's never a good thing, and he's not a great actor. This version of AJ, just Slipknot AJ, is the least obnoxious of any of the AJs. Young, chubby AJ is awful, and whiny, older AJ is insufferable. Insufferable. And yes, I agree. It's just some of the, and I don't want to criticize too much of The Sopranos when it really comes down to, but fuck it. Like Tom himself said in the live chat, it's not about having nostalgic glasses. It's about looking at this with in some ways, through the modern day perspective of modern television look. And I think when you look into some of the stuff that they did with AJ, I don't think it was as fleshed out as it could be. The football thing, it seems like a couple of episodes ago, he joined football because he wanted to get a Letterman jacket and look cool, or wanted a football shirt like his buddy, and it was his choice. But in this episode, at least to the vibe I'm getting, you're getting a little bit of,
AJ feels pressured that he's in football because it's too important to Tony. So is it the pressure that he's feeling because he feels like he's a piece of shit, like he has really low self-esteem and he thinks of himself really lowly? So feeling like he's having too much pressure thrown on him is bringing him down, and that's what causes him to faint and causes him to have that weird sort of balance with Tony. I feel like I'm thinking about it more than the actor did, and that I think is the problem. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I feel like the actor's reaction to all this is, you want to play Nintendo? And he's supposed to be conveying this feeling of, I don't understand my father being proud of me in this moment. It feels false. Yeah. It feels awkward. And I'm too stupid for college. I guess, Matt, to throw it back to you, sorry for the rant. Do you think, and this is a side question, feel free to dodge it, but do you think AJ expects to be in his father's business one day? Do you think, not what Tony wants, do you think AJ's like, I'm not going to college because I'm not a guy like that. I'm a guy like you, Dad. Do you think somewhere AJ thinks like that?
I don't think that, unlike, and we learned this episode actually, unlike his father, I don't think AJ really understands what his dad's business is. I don't think AJ really understands what it is because he's been shielded from it. And we've seen this episode very much so where Tony was not shielded from it. And he saw how the sausage was made. But for all sorts of stupid puns here. But I think he was sheltered from it. And again, it's just one of those things, Phil, where you got to think back to being a kid and how like your life was just normal because it was what it was. You growing up, whatever your parents did, whatever your mom did, that was just like normal because you didn't know anything else. Like, this is just his normal. He doesn't realize it's weird until he goes off to college later. I don't think he really thinks he's going to be there. Remember, there's those scenes when he goes off to college and the kids all know him as Tony Soprano's kid, and he's like, maybe at that point, but here I still don't think he gets the gravity of who his father is. I don't think he gets the weirdness of all the people around him. He doesn't see it yet or know that it's something's off.
Right. He still has that magical sort of youth goggles on and the romanticism of looking at it more like The Godfather than Goodfellas, in the sense of it being normal, just part of your life, and there's an honor, respect, and all of that. He doesn't realize the gravity of the situation, and I don't
like. What's the weirdest thing he's seen so far? We can talk about that. Like, up to this point, what's the weirdest thing or the most? I know Meadow tells him, and like whatever it is, season 1 or beginning of season 2.
Yeah, he looks at the internet, but like I think the weirdest thing he's ever had to deal with is Livia stuff, but that's not very mafia stuff.
Yeah, well, maybe the cops showing up. Remember when Agent Harris shows up and tells him, Tony, you should turn yourself in? But like,
that's my computer.
That's what he's seen. You know, that's what he's seen.
I better have all my programs on that when I get it back. That was his reaction to that. But when we see AJ later on, just to fast forward a little bit, and it's hurting me inside that we have to explore AJ so much in this episode, but we can't not talk about this episode unless we break apart AJ. He uses a lot of moments that we're looking past to throw back in Carmela and Tony's face as intensely traumatic events. Having to go see his grandmother is one of them that he points out. Having to see the FBI, I believe he mentions as well, and I believe he mentions his Uncle Jackie. I forget. We'll get to that eventually.
Yeah.
And also other little minor touch before, so I don't miss it when we get past. It's interesting that a character comes back in this episode, a very minor character, in an episode, I believe it's season 2, it perhaps could be season 1, when AJ gets into a fight in the school with a kid that rips the sweater that his grandmother gets him, and Tony goes to a landscaper shop, a flower shop, to buy some stuff to kill, and he bumps into the kid's father, and the kid's father is afraid of him because he thinks that Tony's going to kill him because his son got into a fight with AJ. That character comes back in this episode and is standing next to Tony.
Is that the guy sitting next to him in the stand that's like rooting on AJ with him? Oh, that's so funny. You're right. It totally is.
Yep. And yes, Tom himself is 420 somewhere. So if you got it, take it and puff it. Or if you want to rather take a sip of something, let's toast it up to Tom himself right now. So all in all, I'm not going to say this is I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy this episode as much as I didn't enjoy the first episode of season 3, but I would say this is, as I was mentioning in my little intro rant, this is very indicative of how I feel about season 3. It's uneven. There's some things in this episode particularly that I really, really like. Christopher being made ceremony, all of that, Polly Walnuts, even in his little amounts.
There's a lot in it. Unlike the first episode, nothing happens.
Yeah.
An hour later, like, someone put a lantern in the house and they checked out Adriana. This is like, a lot happens in here, and there's a lot of stuff worth mentioning. It's just, there's a lot of stuff that's worth forgetting.
Right. It is a lot of stuff that's worth forgetting, too, especially when you think back to where some of it goes. Not a lot of Ralphie in this episode, but we do have Ralphie at a moment, who is someone that I'm tremendously more interested in. We do meet Carmine for the first time in this particular episode and have some further storyline with the fact that he knows and everyone in New York knows that Tony's passing out. We have a little bit more of the Meadow versus Tony dealing with his fucked up comments in last week's episode in Noah Tenenbaum, where they set up a sort of did Meadow want Tony to show up there and start a big fight on her terms and in her situation, where she knows that Tony couldn't go too crazy because they're in the college there, where she's around people that think more closer to her rather than being stuck in New Jersey trying to fight that fight in Tony's castle. Like, so you get a lot of interesting ideas and thoughts being put forth in this episode, but unfortunately the brunt of it is put on AJ and Jackie Jr.'s back, mainly AJ. It's probably the most heavy AJ episode to date.
So far, yeah, right.
And Dwarf Burger Swamp Beard. What an excellent name for this complete stranger in the live chat. The show gets shaky in this season. And yes, I agree, Dev. So without any further ado, let's cue up our episode. For those of you that want to watch with us live, you're more than welcome to watch live. And also, if not, Matt and I will... basically, our conversation is going to continue, but the episode's going to be on in the background. We will give you context of what's going on, maybe be able to hear a little bit of it here and there to match up. But for the most part, I've said this a few times, if you've never watched The Sopranos and this is your first time watching it, I don't recommend watching this with us. Watch the whole thing and come back and watch Matt and I doing this, because we are going to talk over it. We might talk about something that happened randomly in season 6 in the middle of this scene and go on a random rant about are the people in Italy hiding Furio forever from Tony? And which I think, yes, I think Furio will never be found by Tony.
We'll talk about if that bird really was a bad omen or not.
Yes, we will. Yep. And for you Game of Thrones fans, was that really Bran or the Three-Eyed Raven spying on Christopher in that moment? We'll get into all of that. But so here we go. Matt, are you ready?
Yep. So everyone, we're gonna go 3, 2, 1, and then go. And literally, I'm gonna try to hear Phil's audio through his end. Like, this is how it goes. Like,
yeah, let's see.
We're just hoping that we press play at the same. Let me double check and make sure it's good to go if I hit play.
Okay.
All right. Let me rewind. Okay. So whenever you're ready.
Okay. Let me turn up my volume a little bit. 3, 2, 1, go. Wait. Stop. Go. Stop again. It didn't play when I hit the button. It didn't play. Can you start again?
I'm back to the beginning.
Wait. Okay, here we go. Sorry, guys. 3, 2, 1, go. Close enough?
Yeah, close enough.
Can you hear it?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So here we go. Yeah, no, wow. It's we can't hear it. This audio is strictly for analytical purposes. So if anyone can hear this, and if this ends up getting, I'm testing this. I'm testing this volume thing. I think as long as we keep talking, we're fine, because it's just background information.
When I talk, I can't hear it either, so it's perfect.
Oh, good. It's perfect. So Adriana, I guess, is another one that bit by bit, she's becoming a character. She's not quite a character yet. So I'm guessing she becomes a character by the end of the season. Is this when she gets the Crazy Horse by the end of the season?
Crazy Horse might be next, but then again, she's not. How many seasons is she even around for? Crazy Horse might be later, but this is when. Well, find out during this episode is when Christopher says you're not
right.
hostess in
Yeah, you're
anymore.
quitting out.
Then there's that awkward thing coming up between Artie and.
Oh, that's coming later. Okay.
That's coming soon.
Okay, that's coming soon. Okay, good. Yeah, and I agree, Dwarf. I think Furio is safe. AJ is the worst character in the show. Yeah, he might be one of the worst characters in...
Jackie Jr. might be worse, but he's in it so much less.
Right, he's not like a prime time member. So this episode starts out with something that Tom himself is very much loving. Christopher is rolling one up, and him and Adriana are going to have a nice pothead night, eating cheese dogs, relaxing, watching some fun stuff.
Don't answer. You should got in.
I have to. It's football season.
Oh, come on. There's no game tonight.
Paulie, what's up?
Forget that bet, Paula. I was making cheese dogs for you.
Cheese dogs. Do cheese dogs sound delicious to you, Matt?
Okay.
I'm a vegetarian, Phil.
Oh, okay. So do veggie cheese dogs sound delicious
No,
to
it
you?
sounds awful.
In your non-veggie days, would you like... What is a cheese dog? Is it just like... Is it cheese in the middle, or is it cheese like...
I mean, it sounds delicious. It's certainly something at my fattest and most
gluttonous?
Tom himself-ish 420, I would certainly eat them.
Oh, Christopher is getting the call. He's going to be made. He's sure that it is. And probably underreported here is the quickest ever to put on shaving cream. He's in the bathroom like 2 seconds you go and he's covered in shaving cream.
You wish.
So, I mean, just to go back to what you and I were talking about before, of just knowing you're normal. Like this is what your default setting. None of this is abnormal to you. For Adriana, like none of this is abnormal to her. Like,
Yeah.
The fact that her boyfriend's being made, she doesn't have a moment of like worry of what does this mean? Of like, oh no, am I really signed up for this? She's all in because she grew up in a family and like a culture that's very much this is part of their life.
Yeah, and you could say the same thing about Carmela, except she became more hypocritical because she's a more selfish person.
I'm gonna disagree only because her parents I don't think raised her that way.
No, but she grew up around Dickie Maltasante and fucking...
Sure, but Adriana's friggin' uncle is Richie April, you know, like
no,
that's
fair enough. Good point. Amazing Polly Walnuts moment here in a second.
Yeah. I mean, that line he gives to him is the best.
How you doing,
Shoot
kid?
your cuffs, kids.
Hey, kid.
Right up front. Where we go?
You look good, kid. Shoot your cuffs.
You look good.
Shoot your cuffs. What does shoot your cuffs mean?
Just means he's telling him to pop his, like the end of his shirt out so it comes out just that tiny bit out of his suit.
Where we going, son?
If your suits fit tailored and perfectly, they should come out like a tiny bit at the end. I just wanted to do that.
So I might have mentioned this last time, but the actor that plays Eugene Pontecorvo or whatever, that's being made here as well, is the original actor that they had slated to play Ralphie.
Oh, interesting.
But
So where are they right now? Do we have any idea where they are?
I don't know exactly, but we're according to the Talking Sopranos, this was filmed in some random New Jersey house in the basement.
I don't know what Bobby's doing there. Like, why is he turning
Because
up
he's
and
made.
down like
Oh, they
that?
talk about that too. Bobby's made, and Steve Sharippa mentions that they just told him Bobby. It said in the script, Bobby's setting the mood and having incredible enjoyment about the whole situation. He also said, "I didn't know what I was doing," and his director said to him, "Be more Bobby Bacala, less Steve." So he decided to flip the lights and get all goofy.
That's about right.
He says his performance embarrasses him when he watches this scene. Like, he doesn't like himself in this scene at all. He's like, I don't get what I'm doing there.
Then God forbid if you get sick or something happens and you can't earn.
And look, this is a lot of bullshit too. Okay, all this is, does Tony follow these rules? I'm going to ask the
Of course
question.
he does. Of course he does. Angie Pompancero still got a business going, still gets taken care of. He goes and breaks that shit at her house and says, I've been giving you money, not for this. He justifies not whacking Vito because who's going to take care of his kids?
Within the family.
Now, there's a scene much later in probably season 6 or 5 where when Phil Leotardo's calling them nothing but a
Right, nothing but a glorified crew.
But he says they don't even prick their fingers over there. He
Yep.
says that at some point. Phil Leotardo does.
Which is bullshit. They do, as we see right here.
Now,
Oh, okay, here we go. The crow.
how many? But there's so much of this animal symbolism with the cat at the end with Christopher.
Yep.
And you wonder when they put this in now, does David Chase know what's going to happen in season 6? Like, does he know what happens to Christopher, to Adriana? I don't think he knows what happens to Adriana because she only is off the show because she got another offer.
I don't know. You got to figure that his ultimate goal in the end, at this point, he's working with the thought of showing you how far Tony can go by the end of all of this, and maybe knowing that Christopher's journey is ultimately a tragic one.
Does he know that right now, though?
Maybe, but he doesn't. I don't think he knows how Christopher's going out, but he knows one way or another that Christopher's conclusion is probably him dying.
And Eugene.
Yeah, and Eugene. Eugene also becomes a rat that we don't know.
Yeah.
And we see some Bing girls show party. Again, to do some inside information from the Talking Sopranos podcast, they said that this was a very awkward, funny evening. They were all having a party right there with the strippers there. It felt like a real party. We got JSM down from the live motherfucking chat there right now. Hope you're doing good, Jay. I hope all is well. And this is where Paulie sets up the whole situation. You have to give... I'm giving you the betting thing. And Matt, you can help us out with some of the gambling things that go on later here. But
I'll try.
But basically, he's giving him the shy there, the shy business,
Yep.
and he has to kick up to Paulie 10%, which will be kicked up to. Or,
Shy business is loan sharking. This isn't loan.
oh,
sharking.
not shy. This is the numbers game.
The numbers. No, it's betting on football.
Okay, so it's just the gambling ring.
He's just a bookie. Yeah.
Okay, but so what's
But with like big clients, like again, 10 years ago, you don't have the online presence and stuff does now, or 20 years ago this is at this point. So.
No, they mentioned later in this episode that someone's making a $50,000 bet, and
Right.
and
So like this is how you place bets in New Jersey in the year 2000.
yeah, no, I mean I remember this. I took bets like this, not at these amounts, but in my early middle school days, I did did football cards. I sold football cards. I don't know. Did I ever sell you a football card?
Maybe.
I know I sold some to like some of the the football team guys, like Pete C and Dave J and Todd Mick, ESPN.
Yeah.
Dudes like that. I remember selling the football cards to them. But
Is this really the first Carmine we see?
yes, this is the first Carmine. And Carmine knows it.
So that's why he does that stupid explanation. We've been doing business with the Sopranos in New York in New Jersey for so many years.
Jackie Aprile Jr.'s Jr. My father's. I'm here because of my father. I'm showing respect to you because of my father.
Yeah.
So even Julius Caesar had epilepsy, Matt.
Right. I'm not an epileptic.
Well, whatever. He's great, and I guess again, I'm not going to basically use this as the springboard for the Talking Sopranos podcast, but I guess this guy was blowing his line all night, and everyone was laughing, and he kept turning around, and go, "What the fuck, you guys laughing at?" So there was like a good vibe in the room of this night. This is at a restaurant that unfortunately that had been around forever, that I believe just recently went out of business during the COVID situation. And he's slurping his spaghetti, which we hear later Uncle Junior talk about that, not in this episode, much later. Oh, that's that fucking slippery fuck. You see him slurping his spaghetti. I think it's with the Johnny Sack situation about murdering Johnny Sack later. Junior kind of gives his perspective on Carmine, and it's very fun to hear Junior rip him apart. Oh, with the swooping that spaghetti through his disgusting fish lips or something, I think is what Junior says. So here
She is. This your girl.
Yeah, there's the queen of all New Jersey, Janice. Funny thing about this scene, all these snacks come back later, and Tony and AJ start eating them later when they're watching football, I believe. But okay, do you like the Janice stuff that we get in this episode?
It depends on how long it takes to settle Ma's estate.
You realize, I mean, you get how crazy she is in this episode. That is certainly.
Yeah,
Sad, isn't it?
I mean, I like her. I like the whole her stealing the leg storyline and all of that. I think that really works. I kind of forgot about it when we were talking about the pre-part of the episode, but this is really the Janice gets rolling. As much as we saw Janice being Janice with Richie, it was always Janice and Richie together. This is where we see like Janice in full form in this episode for the first time.
Yeah, and you see Tony, I think she realizes after this whole thing with the leg is over, which it's obviously not over in this episode, but she realizes that Tony, because Tony inevitably when she I can talk about that.
Oh yeah, no. Tony,
happens to her,
she gets her ass.
He goes, I have to respond. Like, you don't give me the option because you're my, you know.
Yeah, well, how's it gonna look?
Do something about it. Now this is.
Don't disrespect.
It's a weird scene. I'm gonna point out a few tiny stupid things in here that happen.
Hey, listen, Matt. Don't disrespect the pizza place.
Don't. Have we ever seen him in here before?
Christopher? I think maybe in season 1 with Brendan Filoni.
Did him and Brendan hang out in here,
I believe. I think we saw Brendan and him here in season 1. And I believe this is also our first time seeing Vinny Del Pino there, Doogie Howser's sidekick. Benny Fazio. I believe this
because he says to him, "What's up, Benny? What happened?"
Yeah, I think this is the first Benny stuff. Okay, so Jackie Jr. right away is just like talking to Jeff Probst Jr. here. He's just like, listen, well, fucking, I don't get this. He's just a fucking piece of shit. Shows Christopher no respect here. Like, why? Is this all Resident Richie glow on him? Is that what this is? Like,
probably. He knows that Richie hated Christopher.
He wanted to grab that Moltisanti by his nose and rip him up. He's only allowed to hit Adriana after he marries her. Even though he breaks that rule, Richie breaks that rule by hitting Janice before they're married, which causes his death.
I'm going to point out two things that happen here after
Do
this
it.
little scene. Benny, right after he kicks him, Vinny Del Pino goes up. Right after the whole scene and the guys leave, Vinny Del Pino goes up and does the weirdest little motion and kicks something, but it's the most ridiculous acting I've ever seen for 1 second. And then when they walk out of the restaurant at the end, out of the pizza place, there's a girl in the bottom right-hand corner. Just look at the expression on her face. It's the most absurd thing in the world. Right here.
Oh, yeah, I see the look at her face. Oh, yeah.
Not her. It's when they leave.
Do you know who that guy is? He's from the Howard Stern show. He was on. He was one of like the intern Stern staffers. The kid that just got dragged out.
Watch Vinny here, right here.
What was that kick?
What is that, Vinny?
What was that kick?
It's the girl. Watch when they walk out. No offense. I can't be seen in a place like this. You just walked in there, dipshit. What does that mean? Right here.
It means he went in there just to show off, and some stupid shit happened. But what we did find information in that situation is Jackie Jr. and his little buddy there want to rob a college campus where there's a Jewel? No, that.
A Jewel concert, yeah.
It's a Jewel concert.
It's a concert. It's an Amnesty International film that's close to our hearts.
Yeah, we used to play some of those shows. And what's funny about that is we'll get to it in case we miss it. The person they rob is Perez Hilton. So there's a couple of stunt casting in this episode. You get the guy from Stern in the last scene. And you get Perez Hilton, and we got the wonderful, the amazing Mandrell. What you hear? What you guys say? What you do? Mandrell, great to see you in the live chat. Richie, AJ, and have something to do with the panic attacks. And also, we'll go to the next point that Tony's father had them too, and we find out later that the grandfather probably had them too. Like it's something that runs in the Sopranos family. Junior never had them apparently though.
Well, he's cool for that. But this is interesting here because you can see that he walks into this session and says, "I'm done. Either we have an answer or I'm out of here." Because Carmine knows. Everyone in New York knows. And he knows that like he can't afford to keep doing this because of what's going to be said about it.
Matt, could you tilt your microphone a little bit? I think you're a little quieter.
Now, you okay?
Maybe it's on mine. You just got a little quieter for whatever reason.
It's probably a good thing.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine now. Okay, so here in this situation with Milfy, Tony like inspired by talking to Carmine, pushes her to like, we need to do more work. You need to make me better. We're a year into this shit. Help me out. Like, what's going on here? And in Milfy's defense here, she puts it to work. She like, goes, okay, you want to see some work? Let's go. But does Tony really want that? I don't think he understands what it really would take for him to honestly get better or try to get better. I think he just wants to feel good in the moment.
He just wants a pill to make him stop having panic attacks.
Yeah, just make the panic attack stop. That's all he cares about.
No, I was taking the gabagool and shit out of the fridge.
Okay, so this is where we start to learn that it isn't the ducks, it isn't other things that are causing the panic attacks. The panic attacks are directly related to the meats, to meat, and to food, and interesting shit like that. The sausages.
He doesn't believe it yet. He doesn't believe that that's the cause yet. It's not till later that he puts it all together.
Uncle
Phil, you must love that scene later in this episode.
What?
Nothing would turn you on more than watching Olivia.
That's not real Olivia though.
It's true. True. That one's too young and almost attractive.
Yeah, no, that's not my Olivia, Matt. You can keep that Olivia for yourself.
If it's good for it, take it.
Hey, let it go, let it go. Frozen Phil, frozen hair. Oh, we frozen? I don't know.
Sorry.
Uncle June is very paranoid like Tony. He is.
So that phone call, I believe, was the one where he says, yes, take the action if he's okay with it, the 50 grand.
Oh yeah. So there, and that's all. That's kind of through the back of this episode going through. But Matt, shh, it's my busy season. It's okay. So in this situation, instead of laying off some of the action, meaning not to take the whole 50,000 bet upon himself to other bookies where he could have chosen to do that, he chooses to take all the action on of himself and gamble on this. It's a choice. Some bookies do choose to send out action to other bookies. Like he could have contacted one of the other made guys and tried to get someone to balance out this action for him, but he chose not to do that. He chose to take it all.
They also could have set the lines differently. They chose not to.
Okay, Corey Mitchell says, say what you will, but Jackie Jr. played a naive idiot pretty well. Okay, that's the difference between AJ and Jackie Jr. I feel like the actor did do a decent enough job playing the douchebag Jackie Jr. He's just frustrating. I don't think it's a skip AJ thing. I think the actor does a decent enough job playing the character. I just think too much of the season leans on him, and it causes a little bit of a disruption. If he was just used partially in the background and like same sort of storyline but less importance, more of the focus on the season was about Livia or the war, like interaction with New York or Ralphie, I think he would have worked better for her character. But having him be part of the Meadow storyline and the Mafia storyline to give that duplicity, something about it didn't work for me, but I don't think it's the actor's fault. I would agree. It's unlike AJ where I think he's just a shit actor playing like in a part over his head, or not an actor in a part over his head. A kid with a good personality, probably, that got cast because of his personality, not because of acting chops.
Right, and he's, I mean, especially for the pilot, he's, what, 10 years old in the
Yeah,
pilot?
and he was a charming little kid. We got a couple more chats. Ahmed says, you don't get to Tony's position without being drenched in anxiety. Knowing you might get snitched on and being sent permanently to prison should cause some panic attacks. So I think that's why some of the other guys in the Mafia groups that he interacts with look down upon him, because they all deal with it too, and they're not dealing with panic attacks.
Right, it's a sign of weakness. He wasn't one, we've all seen Analyze This at this point.
Yeah, we've all seen it.
Now, did they just drop this in here that those two are together? Is this how we find out that those two are together?
Yeah, where Ralphie's having sex with your dog. And I also love in this scene how Ralphie talks about how he dropped out of school to take care of somebody, and Carmela's mother goes, "You can never tell." Like
right.
her wackiness is amazing. And this is what I mean with the AJ stuff. The actor's supposed to be portraying a lot in that scene, like almost Tony Soprano level, like angst, and I don't think he quite pulls it off. I don't want to bury him, but I just don't. I think they're giving him some heavy stuff.
The writers must have thought at some level he was doing his job, or else they wouldn't have continued to write him in like this. They wrote a lot of shitty actors off of this show.
I mean, and you think about it, like even in a show like Cobra Kai, they know enough not to give Daniel San's kid anything because he's useless. So they put him in 2 scenes in every season, and they're like,
right. And I don't even know if he was in season 2. He disappeared. For a little bit.
AJ LaRusso there. I mean, he is kind of like AJ LaRusso.
Yeah.
Corey says, Jackie Jr. to me felt like a setup to a bigger bad Ralphie, who then was a setup for a bigger bad in New York, meaning the connection to Johnny Sack and pissing off Johnny Sack and making that whole situation with Johnny Sack and Carmine wanting to use Tony to kill Johnny Sack, and if Tony had chosen to do that, and ultimately he made an enemy of New York that day. Who knows if he had done that for Tony, and then Carmine Jr. comes in, replaces Johnny as his number one, and then with the transition of power, Carmine Jr. becomes the lead, and then Tony has complete control over that family in New York because
and Tony Blondetto's still alive today.
Right, and Philly Otardo is just sort of a guy that's an asshole that talks some shit but never gets the power.
Yeah.
I will say this though, Ralphie was a great asshole character, maybe one of the best asshole characters in all of television and movies. Ralphie on this show, and Joey Pants in general plays a character like that significantly amazing.
No one could be better at playing Ralph Cifaretto than he was.
And yes, and Jackie Jr. was just another failed son to successful, ambitious men. He's a mirror to AJ. And I think that's the thing that we get in this episode that they were trying to do with all three of them. I think Christopher is another one of Tony's failed sons here. It's less clear. But Christopher is, because Christopher has more interactions with Polly, but Polly is ultimately a mouthpiece for Tony through this situation. We see later that he's basically putting Christopher through his paces like this. He'd do it anyway, but...
No, and I think Tony intentionally wants Polly to do this.
Yes,
There's
that's what I
I
mean.
forget if we already missed it or not, when he's like, wait till they find out that we search him. We search the new guys for wires and stuff like that. Because Tony can't really do this for him because he's too close to him. So he probably said, Polly, I want you to be...
Yeah.
Like, bust this kid's balls right now.
And to Corey Mitchell's point in the live chat, we were talking a little bit about this last week. And Corey, great to see you, buddy. And great to see all of you guys in the live chat. Richie Dwarf, Ahmed, thank you everyone that's checking this out live. But about how I think, and you see it so well in this scene too with Tony and with James Gandolfini. Nobody except for Marlon Brando is the next person that pops in my head is as amazing with acting without saying anything. And on top of it, he delivers dialogue incredibly and the breathing and everything that goes with Tony Soprano. But he can convey so much emotion through his facial expressions and through his eyes and through his looks. And even just his silhouette. That scene with Christopher when he starts drinking and gets fucked up and you just see him in the background with a smile going like looking at it all like the devil. And like he's amazing at that.
And so we didn't talk about this, but the end of the scene so essentially he didn't show up at Tony's house, Jackie Jr. didn't. And there's a scene in there where Carmela says to Ro, I'll have Tony say something to him.
Oh yeah, this is the saying something to him. Yep. And in Oakley in the live chat,
he sits down with his glasses and he's gonna tell him take your glasses off.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, Matt. You know what, Matt? I'm gonna say some things to you right now, and you're not gonna like it. You're just gonna have to sit there and listen to it. Yeah. See, this is where I like Jackie Jr. Okay, maybe they shouldn't have done the Meadow and him storyline. Like that's what was a little bit too Padme and Anakin for me when it eventually happened. If they had just kept,
she's not. You look at who she's dated so far, and like she's not going to Jackie Jr. after.
No,
this.
Not after fucking Danny Scatino's kid and Danny Scatino's kid, who's like sort of like a nerdy kind of the kid that
right.
That kid like it just seems like they're like, oh yeah, Jackie and her have had crushes on each other since kids because let's just make Jackie even more of a character. And I think if they wanted to set up the Meadow, but they could have set up that Meadow knew him, but I think the romance between them was so short-lived and weird. I don't think it necessarily had to happen.
Can I ask you something about this right
yes.
here? Do you think he gives him a whole speech right now about how, ask anyone, this hurt all of us, that your uncle was a snitch. Who do you think knows what happened to Richie?
Furio and
Christopher.
What really happened to Richie?
Yeah. Who knows what really happened to Richie?
Janice and Tony.
Jesus Christ.
Maybe Carmela. If she was smart enough to figure it out.
You don't think Christopher knows?
I don't think Christopher and Furio are sure who killed him. I think because if you remember, Tony was also at a point where he had basically approved killing.
Yeah, you're right.
So
and I don't think it matters to them because I think both of them know that Richie being gone is a good thing. Certainly, Christopher knows him being gone is a good thing.
I think the only one that knows for sure is Janice and Tony, maybe Livia. But no, Livia had a Nebutol.
She gave her two. What the hell did she give her?
Nebutol.
Yeah, exactly.
And Tony wins Jackie Jr. over here, convinces him that Richie was in the witness protection program, and that Jackie Sr. was his best friend, and he wanted something great for you, and I love you.
He doesn't. He wants you to be a doctor. He doesn't want you in this life.
He charms him. For some reason, the talking glasses.
This whole football thing is the weirdest thing in the world. The taking the glasses off. Yeah.
6 in the Mind. It was mentioned in Talking Sopranos. Yeah. And by all means, if people watch the Talking Sopranos and I'm missing some references I'm trying to throw a few of those in as well. Throw it in the chat. I've talked about this before. If anyone stumbles into this video and you haven't first watched Michael and Steve break down the episode, they were actually in the episode, so you might want to listen to them first. We're the extra
Corey,
stuff.
We know he cut him up. The question is, do Christopher and Furio know that Janice killed him?
Right,
Which is kind of my question. Or do they think that maybe Tony fixed it? Or do they, even if Tony said something happened with Janice, are they sure? So the question is, like, who really knows? Like, did Tony kill him?
And I think we're left to believe what Corey just said in the chat too. I think we're left to believe that Carmela knows at the end here. Like at the end of that episode, she acts like she knows. This is an interesting scene with the football field where AJ gets into the game and then he gets a fumble recovery. It's like me against Dworkin on a football field getting that fumble recovery drill.
Dude, the kid's in for one play, luckily catches a fumble, and they make him defensive captain next time. I mean, this is some Phil. You played freshman football in high school. This is some bullshit.
This is a major bullshit. I think
he has the cleanest uniform on the fucking team. He gets one fumble recovery. Still the cleanest uniform after recovering the fumble.
He's not even wearing his chin. He's not even wearing his chin strap.
Yeah, and he becomes defensive captain. Weird moment with Tony here when he turns to the other guy and yells something to him.
That's my kid.
Yeah, like it's such a weird moment. Like they're so unnecessary.
It's so family kind of drama.
Yeah, except to show, hey, that's my kid. This goes back to something you and I have talked about before, how I claim that Tony, considering he's a mob boss, is a better father than most mob bosses would be.
And to Corey's point, what was a stretch is that Jackie Jr. was pre-med. He was kind of an idiot. Yeah, the fact that they ever tried to make him even get into pre-med is just ridiculously stupid.
Right. Like, there's no way that kid comes out of high school thinking I'm going to make it.
I think Tony was happy to let people think he offed Richie +1 for scary rep. I agree with that, Oakley. I think he was happy to take that blame that Janice did the dirty work for him. I think that definitely excited him. Changa, great to see Changa.
And no one can prove that he did it, so he doesn't like.
Changa says all their journeys is tragic. Yes, absolutely. Everyone in this fucking story.
I don't know a Coal Chamber song, but it fits the whole AJ brand.
Oh, fuck you, Devin. Devin's like, yeah, you were so good at football. Remember when they had that play that everyone said Phil? No, but they did have a play where everyone said Devin's name in football.
Yeah, they did over and over again. And essentially it was like, we're going to send the moose through and get out of the way.
Yeah, Devin had the makings of a varsity athlete.
So this is great here. Tony shows up with covered in mustard because they went and got, what was it, hot dogs they just went and got together?
Yeah, they went to the hot. AJ agreed. But in that scene, we skipped over it a little bit. AJ tries to connect with Tony on where he's at, going, you want to go home and play Nintendo 64 like we used to, and a reference back to another episode. And Tony's like, just throw that fucking thing out, and AJ gets weird.
Yeah. Oakley, he totally could be. I don't know if...
Matt, do you think... do you think...
So, but the thing is that why not play his son more often then if he was really trying to win?
He was but this was the start of that. He makes him a captain, and then he's going to play him more next week and all that sort of stuff. So I think Oakley might be onto something.
How was everybody's day today?
Busy.
Richie was an entitled asshole when he got out of prison. But the jacket! The fucking jacket!
West Point.
West Point?
Yeah, that's what you said.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did. You were sitting right there. You said either Harvard or West Point.
No way I'd ever have said that. I could
And this goes back again, my theory that Tony's a better father than most mob bosses would be. Carmela calls him up and said, get your ass home. It's my busy season. She said, get your ass home, and he came home.
No.
To have dinner with the shitty kid.
Oh, it's my busy season.
I gotta take that. My busy
It's his busy season. He definitely has the makings of a varsity athlete. Let's be honest, if you had Carmela constantly bitching, tops or flair, I'm not sure, what's that? I always forget in reference to things that we said like 20 minutes ago. What was it?
No, tops and flair is football or baseball cards. I just don't know what the reference is.
And, oh yeah, the flare cards, the ones, the fucking, oh, I fucking remember. Were they the ones with the holographic, like, tops and shit?
No.
Those were Upper Deck.
Dude, I had a huge baseball card collection.
Those were the Upper Deck. Oh, we'll go in a whole baseball
Upper
card.
Upper Deck were the nice ones. Fleer, Donruss, and Tops were the shitty ones until they all got premium later on.
Ah, thank you, Matt. Thank you for that little, Okay, let's be honest.
I know way too much about this.
Yeah, Shanga's going to send you in a direction.
So originally, just go back to last episode, what's her name? What's the Russian's name?
Svetlana.
Svetlana had said she was going to stay there for a while. And then Tony got sick of Janice, so he essentially said, I talked to Svetlana, she's moving out next week.
Yeah. He basically, we skipped over that, but that's basically what happened, and kind of pressured in putting, do you think he realized, does Tony at this point, yeah, he has to, but he's just too preoccupied, realize what Janice is capable of?
I'm sorry about how
Like, that she's gonna, and think about the logistics of the situation. She steals a $20,000 leg to get back, what, $500 in records at most? At most? Like,
That's part of her thing, is she's
crazy?
yeah, and vindictive.
Yeah. So you think this is all like, do you think she thought, I don't know if Janice even thinks. I think Janice is like,
No, she's very, very mentally ill.
yeah, some people have referred to her as Tony with a wig on or something, but I don't think that's the. I've said that before too.
Tony is so much more calculated in what he does.
Yeah, Tony
would never do something like this without thinking of all the ramifications of like, what do you do after you steal her leg? Like, what is the?
She puts it in a locker at the fucking the train station.
But
I'm saying that's what she does. Like that. Like her mindset is
She doesn't realize that her brother's gonna have to essentially kill someone over this or beat the hell out of him.
Yeah. And then we go to Christopher, who's pissed off that and we see
He's pissed about the bird still.
And we see Adriana working out on the floor because obviously the director wanted.
I mean, gratuitously, barely dressed.
After last episode, was it last episode or a couple of episodes ago? It was one we recently did.
Episode 1, when it's just.
Yeah, I guess
they're staring at her at the tennis court.
Yeah, I guess season 3 they're overtly aware finally who their female sex symbol on the show is, and they're gonna like make sure they use it as Christopher knocks her down on the bed. And just so we can get a shot of Adriana laying down on the bed.
And again, she just flips him off. This goes back to the like, what is your normal? Like, if I ever did that to my wife, like, we'd be divorced. But like, that to her, that's just like a fuck you and move on with your
Now,
day.
Corey Mitchell has an interesting point. The clinical term for Janice is, I think it is batshit crazy. That I think that's accurate.
Yeah.
Janice and Tony mimic the parents' relationship. I do think there is a dynamic of that where Janice is a lot more like Livia, but Janice is a good hodgepodge of both characters. They were hiding her,
and you see that at the end of the episode. You see it in that scene how they're just taking in their parents. They're just taking in what their parents are doing, and that becomes their normal when they get older.
Yep. And so in that scene when she was sitting on the bed, fucking whore. In the scene when they were sitting on the bed, she was hiding her leg within the bed. I don't know how they're doing this scene right here with her hopping butt, but when she's sitting on the bed, they were hiding her leg, according to the Talking Sopranos, within the bed. So here is she's calling. Apparently, in this point, she's calling the Russian mob or calling. Or maybe she's calling.
They're just calling her cousin.
Her cousin to bring up the fake like CJ Richie the Birdman. Great to see you in the live chat.
So Christopher has at this point here, we didn't talk about it. He lost a whole bunch of money his first week running the bookie thing, and he owes an extra $2,000 to Polly because he was top of the $6,000.
Right.
He only had 4. He goes, it's going to cost you another 2. I'm not running a school here.
Yeah. And
so Christopher's out shaking down like drug addicts on the street that owe him like $300, and anything he can do to get money at this point.
And I do want to echo the sentiment of Oakley in the live chat that I think the actress that plays Svetlana on the show, unlike Irina here, I think Svetlana is an amazing actress, and she brings so much to this character. And you see why they bring her back for the Junior storyline, taking care of Junior too, and why they bring back the other girl. I could have even dealt with more of this actress. Like she plays this character really well. It's
just even the way they're like when she's like. She's just always got the cigarette. She breaks out the vodka when Livia dies, and it's just like, yep, that's exactly what that person would be doing right there.
Yeah. She's very genuine to the point where like it's just very believable. Whereas Irina is, when Irina says she's engaged, is she talking about the senator guy that we see Tony whip later, or is this somebody else?
I don't know, but the real question is how much of this is to get back at Tony? Like, she still is obviously in love with Tony.
She's there. Look at the look on her. Like, why can't we be friends?
And Dwarfberger knows this as well. Me and Phil and Dwarfberger have all spent a lot of time around Russian families, and that's what Svetlana is so genuine in that.
Does such a good job. I cannot repeat that enough. But Tony and Janice both have the same temper. Corey, I would agree with that. And Tony is more internal than external, but it does come out sometimes. And when it does, I think Tony just has a better job of keeping track of it because within his business he has to. And Janice, because of her lack of any necessary career focus or anything like that, and her game is a little different. You know, Tony has to play within the rules of his game. You know, and
but part of playing in that game with Tony is having having that temper somewhere in you. Johnny Sack has that temper somewhere in him.
Oh, yeah.
Johnny Sack seems like the most
level-headed
cool
dude,
and collected and level-headed person. But that thing with Ralphie, he loses it.
Yeah, he goes fucking nuts. So here we go. He was an interior decorator. Wait, his place looked like shit. We got that episode coming up soon, Corey.
Yeah.
So here we go to our second flashback like this. Was the first one somewhere in season 2?
Phil, something I never noticed I watched at this time or didn't put together until this week is, holy shit, this is how Tony ends up owning Satriali's. I just figured that out this time seeing it. I've probably seen this episode 3 or 4 times. Is that this is how they end up getting Satriali's years later?
Yeah, no, absolutely, because this is the first time this guy playing Tony's father will not be playing him. So I guess the vibe of this is similar to what we'll see in the Many Saints movie that will eventually come out.
Anthony, I told you to wait in the car.
And Svetlana is great, obviously, why the cousins faded but kept recurring. I love that episode. Me too. So this is
See, AJ never sees this though. Tony never tells AJ wait in the car while I go in and do this shit, and then AJ's never gonna.
The closest is what Meadows sees when he goes away to college, but she doesn't actually see anything. She just can be left to suspect that her father did some sort of hinky shit.
And he would have never done that if there was even the slightest chance she would have seen it.
No. Okay, so how do you feel? Do you like these two guys' performance as young as we don't know Tony's father, but do you like this young junior? Do you like these two guys?
I mean, he looks like him. That's the main thing.
Corey says, I thought Silvio was pretty level-headed too. Yeah, Silvio's definitely showed to be pretty level-headed.
But you can see
gambling.
Silvio flips out when he's gambling, and he flips out during AJ's intervention.
Yeah. Oh, I cannot wait to get to AJ and Christopher's intervention.
Yeah. Did I say AJ?
You said AJ. Yeah, but
I meant Christopher's intervention.
Yeah, Christopher's. The guy was the interior decorator. That's gonna be a very.
This looked like shit to me.
That's gonna be a very fun episode, and I'm definitely want to open up the voicemail line a lot for that episode leading up to it. Even if you guys have nothing else to say except for Pine Barrens, give me some of your best quotes. Like leave us some messages from some ridiculous Pine Barren stuff. We're also gonna have the Walking David jumping in to join us at some point, and I've said this before, but we're gonna have some other guests too here and there. I want to get the call-in line set up so we can get some actual phone calls. Get Mandrell to call in and get a couple other people to call in and talk some Sopranos. I just have to tweak that out a little bit to get it to be able to have a call in, but pretty soon 781-990-8509 will work as a call in line as well soon. So we can get a couple of phone calls at the end of since we're gonna live here every other Wednesday for the remainder of this year, pending any changes to our living dynamics
and pending COVID, whatever happens.
Exactly. Pending Matt doesn't have anything better to do, and or have to like get up too much. But yes. So join us every other Wednesday evening for these Sopranos casts. But anyways, so we see how Tony saw him cut Mr. Satriali's hand off or finger off and take over the business, and also, but the thing that gets him, the thing that causes him to pass out, is when they start using the meat in a sexual way.
Right. It's just such a creepy, but again, this is what he grows up with. This is like influence, as his.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, we can get Dwarf Burger to call in too as well. I'll get the call in stuff set up by the next 2 weeks. I'll try to get that all set up.
So Corey, who just said Bobby was really level-headed, I don't think Bobby ever gets in to this business if his dad wasn't in it to begin with. I think that's one of those, like Carmine Jr. Carmine Jr. Like dad wasn't Carmine. There's no chance in hell this is his life.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Bobby. Bobby's dad, as we find out later on, is an absolute badass. Maybe the best guest like acting job in this.
And I believe that's in a couple of episodes. We're getting to that.
It is.
Too.
It's close. Which is great.
This
is so disturbing.
Not yet, Jay. But as I've mentioned before, it's definitely in that pantheon of series that I can't wait to get a chance to watch. Dwarf Burger did not like Bobby. There's not much to like or dislike. I liked them later on, but the early Bobby I didn't love. I liked Bobby in like Soprano home movies when he gets pissed off.
And the fat suit looks so ridiculous and fake in it. You know.
Yeah,
They do
later
such a good job
Bobby.
with that stuff.
I like Bobby in Pine Barrens. That's probably the first time I like Bobby when he comes out and just looks ridiculous and he walks through in there. I definitely like Bobby. I mentioned Sopranos home movies where he beats the shit out of Tony for Under the Boardwalk. Janice is sucking some dick, for his.
Yeah.
So young Livia here is getting turned on by the meat, and Tony has his first episode.
But you remember this stuff when you're a kid. Like, these things stick out in your head and, like, stick with you forever.
I have.
You don't remember any of the good shit when this is the stuff that you'll think about at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's like the weird
Oh yeah,
stuff.
I wasn't sure if that's who he was playing in it, Ahmed, but I know he was in it. I wasn't sure if he was playing Christopher's dad or Tony's dad. But Shane from The Walking Dead, aka the Punisher, aka John Barenthal. I guess that's not AKA, that's his actual name. John fucking Barenthal is playing Tony's dad in the.
Speaking of sons going into their father's business, is Gandolfini's son an actor besides this, or did they just say,
No, he
we
was.
got to get this kid into acting. We got to.
He was an actor besides this. He's in a show I haven't watched, but is also on HBO. People in the live chat will say it in a second. But he's he's on The Deuce, maybe I think it's what it's called. I haven't watched it, but I believe he is an actor and has been in several things. So he and
I mean, not easy shoes to fill.
Michael Gandolfini, I believe that's his name.
Yeah. This is still, to me, this is still the bar for acting in television in this age and era of, like, as an individual performance.
Right. No, we're not talking about shows as a whole. But do you think Tony Soprano is the greatest television character of all time?
Blood so closely connected to the food you were about to eat. And also,
is your goddamn right somewhere in the way there? Is he bumping into you, or are you?
No, he's not. He's not bumping into me on this.
Okay.
I don't want to get into that.
No, we're not
going
to. No,
I honestly never fell for a lot of the Walter White shit, to be honest with you. I loved that show, but it's not what James Gandolfini does here.
Right.
The depth of this character and the way he just totally. You said it. The way he can look at people, the way he breathes.
Right there, right in this scene, like him looking in response to what she's saying. The look in his face is fucking unbelievable. He tells you everything you need to know about the way he's feeling right there. That was bad timing for what I was saying. That was bad time for what I was saying, but exactly. They should have gotten a little Tony actor to play AJ there. They should have gotten a little Tony actor to play AJ. They're quite similar in aspects, but he seems better. There's going to be a Sopranos spinoff. James Elliott, what it is a movie called The Many Saints of Brooklyn, that it's going to be a prequel-ish, but it's going to be more, I believe, about Christopher's father, I think, is going to be the main character, Dickie Moltisanti. But, so probably we're going to find out what happened to Dickie, like how Dickie died. Michael Gandolfini is playing young Tony, and young Sill's going to be in there, and young.
And it's a weird time that you don't see a lot of mafia movies about, which is like Tony has long hair, but you always knew he sort of would. Like, you hear the music he's into, like he was a kid in the '70s smoking weed, listening to listening to '70s rock.
Yeah, listening to the Beatles and Zeppelin and shit.
Yeah.
So this is the scene I was talking about where we see Tony and AJ eating the snacks that Janice left behind. They're just cleaning up Janice's mess by eating it.
why don't you watch your game, Tone?
So Oz was the first show that really had the anti-hero logic. Sopranos perfected it. I would say that Oz, you're preaching to the choir here about Oz, and I think Oz would go further in the sense that it didn't even have anti-heroes. It just had enemies, or not enemies, like villains to a certain extent. But it introduced that concept into the world in a way. I guess Leo Glenn maybe was an anti-hero, even though he wasn't a perfect person, or McManus was. And The Sopranos definitely perfected that, and The Wire kind of jumped on that. Sopranos first, The Wire, 6 Feet Under, sort of started to develop that HBO thing, which infected the rest of television to the point where we are right now in TV.
And this is just the right story for it. I mean, mafia movies, like Goodfellas is a huge movie. Godfather's a huge movie. These are movies that get quoted by people all the time and are considered like canon. It's just like it sells. This is
so true.
It's a world everyone is obsessed with and everyone wants to watch.
And more so in the way that superhero movies are that right now. Maybe we're at the tail end of that, but in the way of the height of it, at the late 90s, early 2000s was how popular mafia movies and things were.
And all Tarantino stuff, which isn't like Italian mafia, but like that just the whole Pulp Fiction thing. Reservoir Dogs is more like that in a traditional sense. And then you have like Boondock Saints, and you have all those movies about just.
And then you have all the
different variations of gangsters. You have the like Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and
and then you have the spoofier ones too, the funnier ones like Mickey Blue Eyes and like stupid shit like that, or deep movies like Donnie Brasco, or it was.
Get Shorty was a movie. Like these are all movies that were out at the time. Yeah.
So here, I love in the peripheral of everything, you see everyone watching this game that Christopher is failing at as Carmela and AJ with the fucking Slipknot.
The Slipknot jacket.
Fucking Slipknot. Go fuck yourself. This fucking Slipknot. Oz paved the way for The Sopranos since it put HBO on the map and made the channel focus on prestige television. Because previous to that, the only television shows that HBO really did was the one I've talked about a bunch of times called Dream On, which was more of like a sexy comedy, and they were all about like doing like.
They did Larry Sanders Show.
Larry Sanders Show was great. I can't hate it. I'm not gonna ever hate on the Larry Sanders Show. But again, comedies, more like, but not really going for that like hour-long dramatic sort of thing.
And Sex in the City wasn't this.
No, it was Oz that did it, and I mean. And then The Sopranos, which was a movie script going around, which because of Oz said, oh, we can do this as a series too, and then it got threw it in that direction. And one quick thing before this. Sopranos was originally supposed to be on Fox, but Fox passed on it, and they moved it to HBO. It was going to originally be.
Never worked on Fox.
Yeah, but originally it was going to be a network fucking show. Imagine if The Sopranos was a network show. That's how popular mafia stuff was. That it was being considered as like a big time, like.
So what was this going to be then? Some kind of
primetime drama.
I love this here. I would have knocked the shit out of him. Yeah, right, you kid.
Yeah, I mean, no. Aris, yeah, there's another one we got back in that time period.
What is where is 6 Feet Under in relation to this? Before, after, during?
After, I believe, and during. Like it started after. I think 6 Feet Under was the third of the series. Like, we go fourth. I mean, Oz to Sopranos to The Wire, and they all sort of crossed over with each other. And I think the next one was 6 Feet Under.
Okay.
I think it was either 6 Feet Under or Deadwood. One of those two.
I was going to say Deadwood's probably around the same time.
Yeah.
And I never watched either one of those because I suck. But I'm going to just look up and see when.
Both are very good in their own ways. And then, of course,
my wife has certainly watched 6 Feet Under several times.
Yeah, that's a very great show. Very well put together, even if it's not your thing.
Yeah, you're right. It started in 2001 and ended in 2005, which is after The Sopranos.
Yeah. When did The Wire start? Look that up for me.
So Sopranos started in 1999, so 2 years before that, and now The Wire.
Took him a while, but he caught on. But he keeps his opinions to himself. Unlike some people, he's a brilliant.
Wire didn't start till 2002, so it actually came. 6 Feet Under was right before The Wire.
Okay, so it actually goes 6 Feet Under was after the first one after The Sopranos. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, of those, I mean, maybe there was.
Yeah, there was other half-an-hour ones or other ones that came in, but I'm talking about the big, awesome ones, of like those big Murderers Row series that came out, where you go from the Oz, Sopranos, The Wire, 6 Feet Under.
Deadwood was 2004.
Deadwood.
And then right after, it was almost.
Oh,
right after
and
The
Carnival
Sopranos
and Carnival and Rome. Without Rome, you don't get Game of Thrones. Like so.
And then right after that was that Steve Buscemi one.
Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah, that had to have been.
That was maybe
right
2007, 2008, or something like that, right after The Sopranos ended. So in this scene, this is one of those scenes I'm talking about. We're supposed to get a feeling that AJ doesn't like the vibe of college right here, and he's making him uncomfortable because he's stupid, and he doesn't like everyone being like shiny, happy people. But
meanwhile, he's wearing a Slipknot jacket.
And they never really follow up on this. He passes out here, and then he just like whatever.
Yeah, and not only that, nothing is happening that's too weird in front of him that would really freak him out. Like I thought, what they were going for was to show how uncomfortable it was, they would have shown stuff that was even more extreme than what he just saw, which wasn't.
Oh, don't give me bullshit. Where is my leg? Your leg?
Oh, Entourage came in there as well at some point in time.
Boardwalk Empire wasn't until 2010. I was way
Okay.
off.
Oh, whatever. I love this scene. I love how Svetlana just like knows how to call her out, and Janice's like attitude in this scene is just amazing. Like, shut up, don't waste your breath. This cunt fucked with the wrong person. I love her attitude and her vibe towards Janice here, because she knows Tony's not gonna hurt her.
I don't know two things. I don't know A, if Janice has any idea that Svetlana is gonna go get Russian mafia. And
No.
B, I don't know if Svetlana really knows about the Sopranos.
She does. She has
Oh.
to. She has to, because
But she doesn't. I don't think she does that then.
she was there when Silvio showed up to give her cousin a $70,000 envelope to leave
You're
Tony
right.
alone.
You're totally right.
She knows Russian mafia. She completely understands what kind of person Tony is. She just knows that she has Tony wrapped around her finger to the point that Tony's never going to hurt her. And so she can push this as far as she wants. She has her own scams going on. Like, this dude that's her husband, who she ultimately cheats on Tony with, cheats with Tony on. Like, does she really care about this guy? Like it's this whole like sort of side thing that's going on with her and this guy. Like I don't know. I think she knows Janice because she's a player a little bit too. At least that's the vibe I get. She knows how to manipulate people better than some.
She's also like a Russian with one leg. She ain't scared of shit.
No.
Like, she's seen stuff. I know you haven't seen the Americans, Phil, but like, when you see what the Russia was that girl grew up in, you're like, yeah, she's seen shit that she's not scared of.
Yeah,
Janice
I've talked to Dimitri.
Jersey.
I've talked to Dimitri. I've heard stories.
There's so many
So,
they're all smarter than me.
James, you missed the final episode. Showtime needs to step up their game. Showtime has Shameless and had Weeds. We'll talk a little bit about Weeds. So this is the end scene here. I believe this is the.
All those shows ended up with terrible finales. Same thing with what's the other one with what was the one with Claire Danes in it?
My So-Called Life.
No, the one that was on.
Under no circumstances move this car. Your life will not be.
Okay, so before we get let's just we have 5 minutes left in this episode. Jackie Jr. is the driver here. He shits his pants, or pisses his pants, which whenever I get nervous, I always feel like I have to go to the bathroom. This is Perez Hilton in there.
Oh, you really date yourself by wearing the scream masks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, I know the one. Homeland. Thank you, Ahmed.
Thank you. Yes, Homeland.
And I would say Weeds gets better in the final scene of the episode. Like, it may get really weird and stupid, but the final scene of Weeds is good. The final scene.
Homeland was totally off the rails, so I stopped watching it.
So they get into a whole thing here. They rob this. Christopher gets enough money to pay off Polly here, and all is relatively good.
They call him out later for pissing his pants, right?
Yeah, they do.
Seriously.
But, you know, you can't help yourself in situations like that sometimes. You know,
I mean, I'd be excited too if I thought I was going to meet Jewel back.
Yeah, you know? Come on. And Tony starts to get pissed. I believe Tony gets pissed that Jackie Jr. does this. Or that Christopher uses Jackie Jr.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he's mad at Christopher, though. But again, Christopher, I'm sure, wanted nothing to do with it.
No,
I think he thinks that's below his pay grade at this point, to be out sticking up a college. But he also is
I had a late night.
is fucked and just got made. Doesn't want to screw that up for
You
himself.
gotta give that shit a rest. Man needs his 7 hours.
So here's
I
the.
love that line. Man needs his 7 hours.
Little Jackie hyped us to a score at the Rutgers camp.
When was the last time you slept 7 hours?
What's the matter?
Oh, I haven't slept 7 hours in my life.
This beat
I'm about
meeting,
4.5, 5, and I'm up.
Yeah,
lot of
that's all I need.
responsibilities. Fucking A. What did you
Actually, at this point in my life, under 5, I feel it. Under 4, I really feel it.
Yeah.
I can still.
Do you mean by feel like having to pee? Having to get up and run to the bathroom?
No, I mean if I get less than 4 hours of sleep the next morning.
Oh, no, I know. I'm kidding.
I had really bad insomnia when I used to teach, and like I'd go to work on 2 hours of sleep and teach all day, and just be like, "What am I doing?" Like I was out of sorts.
So this is part of the episode that I enjoy. We see the transition from Polly working with Christopher and getting that money to seeing how Tony's sort of been watching him this whole time, and then seeing the transition of Polly with Tony, where for Polly it was a good week. Yeah, it was a good week. Here you go. There was so much self-deflection.
Right here, this line right here. Wait till he gets the policy about them having, us checking for wires unmade guys.
Yeah, because now they're doing the hazing rituals. Oakley says there's so much self defecation on The Sopranos. There was this one where the safe cracking and Christopher
This
peasing
one,
himself.
the safe cracking, Chris pees himself during the Fortunate
Yep,
Son.
and one of the characters dies on the toilet.
It's true.
Cause-
Won't fish at all.
Yeah, because he can't shit. So, okay, yeah, Tony finds out that he's worked with Jackie Jr. and he's calling him to try to be like, fuck you, what the hell happened? And Christopher's just like, fuck this.
And Jackie, and when Tony goes, what is he even doing with that Mutadel? Talking about the kid that Christopher was, that Jackie was hanging out with.
When's you gonna grow up?
So that's the Fortunate Son moment with Christopher right there, where he's like, when is Christopher going to grow up? But didn't he grow up in this situation? Didn't he do what he needed to do ultimately?
No, doing what he needed to do was not screw up in the first place. He did step up and get the money however he had to, but...
So Soprano here is a leader, Matt.
Soprano. I hate when people call it Soprano.
Soprano. It's like the people that called our hometown Skit.
Oh, and everyone did.
Yep. Oh, down goes AJ. Down goes AJ. Down goes Soprano. So why did he pass out, Matt? Panic attacks. What put on that panic attacks? Not the meat. He didn't smell any. He didn't smell his coach's meat.
No. So what put on the panic attacks?
I know. I have my perspective. I mentioned earlier. I think it's the pressure of any sort of responsibility freaks AJ out.
Yeah, and maybe the fact that he's been down on himself the whole. Oh, I'm no good at this. Oh, I don't want to go to West Point. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, I'm not going to go to college. Oh, I'm not going to be smart enough. And then like he gets recognition and he can't handle it.
Yeah. It's an uncomfortable feeling for him ultimately. So let's jump into a little bit of the live chat that we might have missed between there. Thank you guys for joining us tonight and keeping the chat exciting and fun. Poor Furio says Ahmed, his silk underwear was ruined with that shot in the leg.
Yeah, remember Furio? He like won't shut up after he gets shot. Yeah, he's just yelling. He's running his mouth in Italian the whole time.
I refuse to watch any Showtime series. They're dumb and they just end randomly or go on for 10 seasons too long. I think that is definitely the poster way you could describe Weeds. And I think what HBO's done really great, I think some of the other main cable stations, even though they have some good shows that pop up, Ray Donovan's a show that I'll mention that I watch that isn't an HBO show that is good, but some part of me feels like if it was on HBO it would be even better. There's some quality that when HBO's got a good show going that is almost maybe it's a little bit of placebo effect because they've done it so much, so I look at it differently. But for whatever reason, it's just HBO denotes a little bit more quality when they have a series that actually hits going, and they tend to end them at the proper times, unless you have Dan and Dave screwing it up.
Especially now that they know how to end them, like they know when it's supposed to run out, except the Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Game of Thrones aside. Yeah, I was just gonna say unless your name's Dan and fucking Dave, fuck that. And let's see. AJ had a very comfortable upbringing. How could he have the resiliency and a mechanic for coping? I mean, AJ was never challenged. I think even Meadow was challenged more because I guess Carmela and Tony realized very early on that AJ probably wasn't as naturally bright as her, and he had much more of a chance to fall into the unfortunate pattern to get into Tony's business. So they probably wanted to make sure that he was put on as much of a pedestal and set up in the other situation as much as possible. But didn't he also get kicked out of several schools, and he had to bounce around schools because he kept getting kicked out for some reason?
I think a lot of that happens later because he hasn't gone to military school yet, right?
Or were they threatened to put him in military school? I believe that's Army of One is a later episode this season where they're right about to put him into military school and he passes out again, and then they decide, and then Tony gets really upset because he can't put him into military school, and how can he save this kid? Where when he's talking to Milfy, where he's kind of also talking about Jackie, like how can he save Jackie? This parallel that gets set up in this episode is a through line for all of the season. So it is something, for whatever it's worth, we're going to keep an eye on as we make our way through the rest of season 3. Season 3 is a season that has some individual excellent episodes that are almost out of context of the overall storyline of The Sopranos. Matt mentioned earlier the Bobby Bacala's father's episode, which I forget what else is going on in that episode, but I know most of it just has to do with a single incident that needs where some guy, Mustang Sally or whatever his name
Mustang Sally, yeah.
causes...
He beats up Vito's cousin.
Right, and then something needs to be done about it. So it's like a whole episode about that. Then we get the Pine Barrens, which is a whole episode about something else. We get a couple of other episodes that are individual arcs mixed with the overall story arc of this season, which is the rise of Ralphie being a problem, and Jackie Jr. and AJ parallel about how he's losing all of his kids and
his
Christopher.
Girlfriend that comes up. What's her name?
Oh, Gloria.
Gloria, yeah.
Gloria shows up soon too. Yes, Gloria shows up soon too.
And continuation of Janice being Janice. And
yes, rest in peace, Big Pussy. Hey, in the Boca, how the hell did Carmela found out about Uncle Junior eating pussy? Okay, this is how Carmela found out about Uncle Junior eating pussy. They never tell you specifically, but there's talks. Somehow it gets back to hairdressers in the hairdresser that Carmela goes to. And we see a woman in the background listening to Junior's girlfriend and the hairdresser talking about it and listening to the conversation. And I believe that character was set up earlier as one of the mafia wives, or is not Pussy's wife, obviously, but one of Carlo's wife or something like that. So it is a setup that somehow she knows Carmela, and by seeing that happen, we know that it's being spread around the mafia wives and mafia connected girls that Uncle Junior eats pussy well. And everyone thinks it's cute. Because all the girls aren't doing it in a way to say, fuck Junior, he's less of a man.
Yeah, they're all like, I wish our men would do that.
Exactly. Oh, isn't it awesome that...
pride to do it themselves.
Exactly. Isn't it awesome that Junior licks pussy? And so... so that's all. That's basically that. AJ is no different than Theon Greyjoy. From the very beginning, you could tell they're doomed and not for this world. And Tony and I were talking about that on a different topic last night in the streams about what would happen if Cersei was raised by the Starks. Would she still be the same person? And sometimes, especially, again, we're talking about television, fake literature characters here, not real human beings, characters. Sometimes a character, you can pick them out straight up. AJ is meant to be a failure. He's Fredo Soprano. They refer to him that in the show. The show is meta about it, that AJ is Fredo. He's supposed to be a fuck up. He's supposed to be the one that, it causes the problems, the one that he doesn't fit in either world. He's not tough enough to be in the mafia, and he's not smart enough to figure his life out himself. It has to get to a point where he's someone like Adriano, where he has to be given a club, or by the end of the series, he ends up working for Carmine Jr. in porn, right? As a PR in his porn business or something. I think that's how AJ ends.
I don't remember that at all, but that's... Although if that was something that happened, I would have intentionally forgotten.
I believe at the end...
I don't want to remember Carmine Jr. and AJ, either one of them on their own.
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that, and again, we'll look to this to the end of the series, but I believe the end of AJ's storyline is AJ's about to join the army, and they get him out of it by basically replacing Christopher's dead, and they make AJ, and Tony forces AJ to be Carmine's Christopher for the movie business, to basically do what Christopher was doing, being his number one guy and run errands for him and lead into the movie business with him, and that he has a future in that business.
Listen, all I like to remember about AJ in the last season, besides him almost dying in a car, catching on fire,
that stupid
is
hair.
Tony finally slapping the shit out of him like he should have done for 7 seasons before that, 6.5 seasons before that.
Yes, and I also remember I also love when he went, because he went in to try to kill Junior, and I love Tony's reaction to that, because you think through the whole thing, and even Tony plays it for a little bit, like he's mad at him for trying to do that, but then finally he breaks it apart. He's like, okay, you want this side of me? I'll show you this side of me. And then you got in there, and what'd you do? A big fucking nothing. It's because he would have, in a way, even though Tony didn't want this, and even though in front of Carmela he would have been angry and yelled, if AJ actually successfully got in there and killed Junior, some part of Tony, knowing the fucked up thing that we know about Tony Soprano, would have been proud of AJ. He would have been like...
Yeah, but he knows that AJ's going to jail for years and years.
Yes, but he still would have privately said to AJ, you know what? I'm proud of you. I know what you did. I know why you did that, and it makes sense to me. You made a mistake, AJ, But he wouldn't, like, not in the way that he slapped the shit out of him and called him, what'd you do, a big fucking nothing. I think that's Tony being real with AJ, because this is speculated again on Talking Soprano. I'm stealing shit, but I think in some way Tony wants to keep AJ out of the business. I agree with the speculation. Yes. He wants to keep him out of the business, but again, but he also is bitter and angry towards AJ for not being in the business. So he fucks him on both ends. Like he doesn't.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't like that he's a pussy. He said that a million times.
Right, and he doesn't like that he's been shielded from the business, even though he's the one that shielded him from the business. You know, he's like pissed off about the fact that it's like, Matt, don't ask me questions about my life. Now I'm pissing you, Matt, because you're not asking me questions about my life. It's like he almost like fucks him on both ends right there. And maybe he does that because of Carmela, because Carmela would never allow it. But maybe she would. Would Carmela, if Tony was strong from the very beginning, my son needs to be in the family, would Carmela have been like, okay, that's basically what it is?
Oh, God, no. But they made that deal before. The other thing is too, because he's not part of the business, there's a level of, I don't want to say intimacy because that's not the word I'm looking for, but kind of like he can never be close to him the way he was with Christopher.
Yeah.
Like when you go and bury bodies with someone and know that you can count on that person to call them up and have them show up and, you know, and go cut up Ralphie Cifaretto, or what, they don't cut Ralphie up, I think. Or is that the last one they decided to cut up?
No, they do cut up. They do cut up Ralphie.
They do cut up Ralphie too. Or
remember he puts his head in the bowling bag. Like Christopher puts.
Yeah, but like he trusts, like there's something about that level of trust that he's never going to have with AJ. He can't relate to him in that way that he can with Christopher.
No, and we see that done very effectively in this episode with the whole Nintendo thing, where AJ. Tony's very proud of AJ and he's trying to relate to him by being like, let's go get hot dogs. Let's go do this. Let's do what I want to do.
He's trying to be like a regular dad. He's like, what would a dad do right here? Because I doubt his dad did it that much with him.
But do you know what AJ
what would a dad do?
But what AJ wants to do, he's of that generation. What he wants to do is go home, get a pizza on the way home, go play video games and sit on the couch. Because that's really what he wants to do. And Tony's just like shits on that right away. Immediately like, why do you want to do that? That's stupid. Fuck you and your...
Oakley, I don't think he would have been a better person. I just think he's just so sheltered. Like he's never had to do anything for himself, and I think that would have totally been. There's an element of having to think for yourself, I guess, and having to like react to what's going on around you, and living in danger, and having instincts for it that AJ's never had.
Now, was that the first question you were asking, Matt? Based on what you said about the long overdue Tony slapping the shit out of AJ, you must have been a strict teacher.
Oh, who's me?
Yeah, Oakley asked you the question. Matt, based on what you said about long overdue Tony slapping the shit out of AJ, you must have been a strict teacher. Question mark. No, from what I've heard, I have a random friend that had Matt as a teacher early on and says Matt was a very nice teacher. I was laid back in that sense. I was a hard ass later, but not really. Like the kids liked me. Let me put it that way. Even if I was tough, you can still be a tough teacher and have kids like you. I was like that at the end of my career. Like the kids still liked me, but I don't teach anymore. But like, I was a hard ass at the end. I held them to high standards, but they liked me. So it's not it was still fun. I don't know. I wasn't like a pushover. You didn't walk all over me, but. No, but it's just Ahmed says Ahmed says it perfect right there. It's difficult when someone is both a pussy and a dunce, and their parents put so much pressure on them and expectations. And that's like the perfect explosion that we get within AJ. And that's I think what is supposed to be birthed, so to speak, in this episode is knowing the position that AJ's in right now when Meadow's out of the house and dealing with her own stuff and trying to basically sever all contact with her family right now, which changes by the end of the season with the Jackie Jr. stuff, but we'll get into Meadow later. But this episode is...
So does Jackie.
Yeah, he does. A few times anyways. But oh my God, that scene when they're playing Scrabble later in the series.
I know, it's so bad.
It's so...
like, I've played games with my wife before where, like, we've played Boggle and I've come up with a really... And I'm like, dude, I feel like fucking Jackie Jr. right now. Like, why did I write that down? ASS.
Yeah. Oakley's cracking me up. But everyone, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We could babble more about The Sopranos endlessly, but we'll be back in 2 weeks on the... Let me look at the calendar. I believe it's the 31st. Oh no, it's it'll be into March. It will be on the 3rd. Our next Sopranos cast, episode 4, season 3, will be on the 3rd of March, pending any differences. Matt and I schedule.
Now listen though, you have to understand something, Phil. We are now essentially, next week is the end of February. We should be 4 episodes in already. And we're not.
We're good, but Matt, what you don't understand is we're gonna get 3 episodes in March. That's just the way that the weeks work.
Not good. I know, but we need more.
We'll catch up. We're gonna catch up, Matt.
We'll catch up at some point.
We'll catch up. Don't you worry, Matt. But we'll be back on the 3rd.
I'm already getting stressed about it.
I know Matt's getting stressed. His math skills. He's not teaching class anymore, so he's using his math.
February, and like no one's left their house in a year, and I'm stressed about getting through Sopranos episodes. Like this is where my life's at.
No, I like it. It actually makes me feel really good that you're this invested.
Dude, it's so cold up here in Vermont. There is snow. The ground has been white for 3 months straight. It's brutal. Like I don't know. All right, sorry. That's
fine. AJ reminds me of Peter Schiabetter, who got ousted from the Italian gang after being raped twice. The second one was super stupid when he started the fight with Vern and the other fucking skinhead douchebag, the dude that loses his fucking dick later on, gets his dick bitten off or whatever by Tobias. Robson, is that his name? Yeah, like you don't start it, and then the other fucking Nazi guy was running the shop, and fucking Schiabetter starts a fight with the 3 of them, and then he was, and then what's his name? Vern was looking for pictures of Spider-Man up his ass right there. It's just fucking damn J.K. Simmons. I love you guys. You guys in the chat have been amazing tonight. And if you haven't already and you enjoyed this podcast, enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share your comments and your thoughts in the comment section below, or call on in 781-990-8509. Again, that's 781-990-8509. You can leave us messages and we'll play it on the next show. So in between now and then. Also, I will be back some point next week with some random discussion of some kind. And I'm also popping up a lot on my Twitch channel playing some Zelda right now. Check that out at Phil the Issues Guy on Twitch. You can find the link to that in the description box below. Also,
the link to that?
The link of time. And I am playing a Zelda game right now too. And also, every Saturday I am on Teflon TV talking about WandaVision at 3:30 Saturday afternoons Eastern Standard Time for the remainder of this season with Tony and Alicia. So if you're into that and you're watching that, you want to hear some discussions about that, join the 3 of us over on Teflon TV for that. And then I usually pop up on After Darks over on Tony's channel. But so all those ways, Joe and I will also be back on, I think Joe will be with me. I'm pretty sure. If not, Walking David will be stepping in here and there to join me to talk about The Walking Dead coming back in a couple weeks as well. So make sure you're subscribed for all that silly fun. Thank you, Changa. You're awesome. Thank you to Oakley. Thank you to James, Ahmed, Dwarf Burger, all the other friends that popped in here tonight. You guys, thank you. You guys have been entertaining us tonight. It's hard to not just watch the chat and want to babble with you guys, but it's been awesome to watch these Sopranos episodes, and we'll be back very soon.